So, I want you to just pause for a second and notice what your brain is doing right this exact minute.
It's probably doing a lot of things.
Right, but I mean specifically with language. Like it's entirely invisible to you, but you are currently pulling off one of the most cognitively demanding tasks in the known universe.
Decoding sound waves.
Exactly. You're just effortlessly decoding this continuous stream of, varying sound waves hitting your eardrums. And your brain is instantly converting those mechanical vibrations into complex thoughts.
And you aren't even trying to do it.
Yeah, it just happens.
Well, it is the ultimate invisible architecture, right? We do it all day, every day.
Yeah, we totally take it for granted.
We do. And because it feels so effortless, we kind of forget that language isn't just a basic tool for passing along information.
Right.
When you really look at the underlying mechanics, it becomes pretty clear that language is essentially this highly calibrated system for social survival.
Which is exactly what we are unpacking in this deep dive today.
It's a huge topic.
It really is. So we've got this incredible stack of linguistic research here, and we are going to trace the whole journey of this system.
Right, from the very beginning.
Yeah, from how we acquire this biological operating system as infants to how the culture we're born into secretly dictates our concepts. And then finally, how we use those concepts as adults to, navigate the absolute minefield of human politeness.
Oh, politeness is definitely a minefield. But the timeline of that biological booting up process is arguably the best place to start.
Because it's universal, right?
Completely universal. Regardless of geography or, the specific language spoken in the home, human infants pass through the exact same developmental sequence.
And that starts with babbling.
Yeah, the babbling or scribble talk stage in their first year.
And reading through the sources, what really struck me is that babbling isn't just random noise.
No, not at all.
Like when a 6-month-old is just sitting there going ba-ba-ba or da-da-da, they are actually calibrating their vocal apparatus.
They're matching the rhythmic prosody of adult speech.
Yeah, even though there's zero actual meaning attached to those sounds yet.
They're essentially tuning the instrument before they even know how to play a song.
That's a great way to put it.
But the actual heavy lifting of communication, that begins around 9 to 18 months.
With the holophrastic stage.
Right. This is the era of the single word utterance, the holophrase.
Which requires, incredible mind reading on the part of the listener.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if a toddler points at the counter and says juice, they aren't just naming an object. That one noun carries the weight of a whole sentence.
It could be a demand, like, gimme that juice.
Or a question, is that my juice?
Or just a declarative observation that the juice exists.
Right. And the burden of figuring out the syntax is entirely on the adult.
Exactly. But that dynamic shifts dramatically between 18 and 24 months.
The two-word stage.
Yeah, and this is where the biological hardware really shows off. Because toddlers begin combining words, and they intuitively grasp syntax almost immediately.
Without any formal instruction. Which brings up a concept from the research that completely rewired how I think about this. The poverty of the stimulus.
Yes, that's a fascinating concept.
Right, because children hear a chaotic mess of language, like adults cutting each other off, using slang, trailing off mid-sentence. The input is super messy.
But their output perfectly aligns with mathematical grammatical rules.
It makes no sense. How do they do it?
Well, linguists attribute this to an innate language acquisition device, or an LED.
So we're basically pre-programmed for grammar.
It seems so. Just consider an English-speaking toddler in that two-word stage. They'll say, want cookie.
Right.
They inherently understand the subject-verb-object structure of English, meaning, the verb precedes the object.
You won't ever hear them say cookie want.
Exactly. They simply don't make that specific syntactic error, despite never having a single lesson on what a verb is.
So it's not just stacking vocabulary like bricks to build a wall. It's more like chemistry.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the verb acts as a catalyst that forces the nouns to react to one another in a very specific directional way. And the toddler instinctively knows how that chemical bond works.
That's a really apt way to visualize it, yeah. And that structural instinct becomes even more obvious during the telegraphic stage.
Which is usually around ages 2 to 3.
Right, that's when they start dropping functional elements like prepositions and articles, but they keep the core content words.
So that's when you get sentences like Daddy play garden.
Exactly. The grammatical mortar isn't quite there, but the structural integrity of the thought is totally intact.
But okay, here is a real-world observation that always baffled me. And the research finally explains it.
Oh!
Yeah, so I have a niece. And at 2 years old, she used to say, I went perfectly.
Okay.
But now she's 3, and suddenly she says, I goed. Or she'll say she cut to the paper.
Right, right.
It looks like her language skills are getting worse.
Yeah.
Like, why would her brain start making more errors if she has this highly advanced language acquisition device?
Well, it looks like a regression, but actually you're witnessing a massive leap in her cognitive development.
Wait, really? Making mistakes is a leap?
Yeah. Linguists call this phenomenon overregulation. It happens during the multi-word stage.
Okay, so what's going on there?
Basically, your niece is no longer just parroting phrases she memorized. She has independently recognized a complex structural rule.
That adding ed makes it past tense.
Precisely. She figured out the formula.
So she's just applying the formula universally.
Yes, she's doing the math perfectly. She just hasn't learned yet that English is full of, well, historical anomalies and irregular verbs that totally break that rule.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Linguists call it a virtuous error. It's actually proof of intelligence, not a lack of it.
Which brings us to the WUG test, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jean Berko-Gleason's study in 1958.
The classic demonstration of this, yes.
She showed kids a drawing of this fictional creature and said, this is a WUG. Then she showed them 2 of them and said, now there is another one. There are 2 of them.
And the kids would immediately say wugs.
Right. Even though they had never heard the word before, so they couldn't have memorized the plural.
They had to apply a phonetic rule in real time.
That is just so cool.
It is. And they apply these underlying rules while just absorbing vocabulary at a staggering speed.
The numbers are wild.
Yeah, the developmental data shows that by age 6, a child has not only acquired the core mechanics of their language, but they've amassed a vocabulary of around 14,000 words.
14,000 words.
Yeah.
By age 6.
It's a lot of data.
So biology basically gives us the filing cabinet.
Yeah.
By age 6, it's packed full of folders.
Yes.
But this raises a pretty crucial question.
What's that?
Well, the biological hardware might be universal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a child in Tokyo and a child in Chicago end up categorizing the universe in completely different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So who decides what actually goes into those 14,000 folders?
Well, that is dictated entirely by the culture the child is born into.
Right.
Which kind of shifts us from biology over into cultural linguistics or ethno-linguistics.
So looking at researchers like S.G. Terminosova and Viantelia.
Yes, they've extensively documented how language functions as a cultural practice.
So it's not just a passive description of the world.
Not at all. It actively encodes what they call the characterological features of a mentality.
So the actual values of a society are baked straight into the lexicon.
Yes.
Let's look at the kinship term examples from the sources, because I thought this perfectly illustrated the mechanism.
It's a great example.
Like in English, if you have a male sibling, the label is universally brother.
Right.
It doesn't matter if he is 20 years older than you or 5 years younger. English doesn't require you to encode that age dynamic into the basic noun.
But if you examine cultures that place a high structural value on social hierarchy or, age seniority, the language fractures that single concept into highly specific categories.
Right, like in Polish.
Exactly. In Polish, you don't merely have a brother. The language demands a distinction. You either have a starzy brat, an older brother.
Or a mudzi brat, a younger brother.
Yes. And Turkish goes even further. It removes the shared root word entirely.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
An older brother is an abi, and a younger brother is a kardesh. They are fundamentally distinct concepts.
So the mechanism there is that a Turkish speaker literally cannot discuss their sibling without actively calculating their relative status and age.
Exactly. The grammar of the language forces the speaker to pay attention to specific social dynamics just to form a coherent sentence.
So learning a new language isn't just taking English labels off a jar and slapping Turkish labels onto the same jars.
No, not at all.
It's learning a completely different way to organize the jars based on what that specific culture thinks is important.
You're adopting a completely new conceptual picture of the world.
Which is mind-blowing.
It is. But once you have downloaded that cultural dictionary, well, then you have to actually use it to interact with other human beings.
Right.
Which introduces an entirely new layer of complexity.
Because now we are stepping into the social minefield.
Oh, a huge minefield.
You have the words, sure, but how do you actually ask someone for a favor or, offer a critique without completely alienating them?
Right.
Which brings us to politeness theory,
Mm-hmm.
specifically Penelope Brown and Stephen Levinson's framework from the 1980s.
Yes, and their entire framework rests on a concept originally articulated by the sociologist Irving Goffman.
The concept of face.
Exactly. Face is essentially the public self-image that every member of a society wants to claim for themselves.
And Brown and Levinson break face down into two competing desires,
Two very powerful competing desires. First, we have positive face.
which is like our fundamental need to be liked.
Yes, the need to be liked, validated, and to feel like an accepted member of the group. We want our desires to be shared by others.
Okay, that makes sense.
But simultaneously, we have this intense drive for negative face.
Negative face.
Yeah, despite the confusing name, negative in this context just refers to autonomy.
Ah, okay.
It's the desire for freedom of action, personal space, and the wish to not be imposed upon.
So it's like, I want to belong to the group, but I also desperately want the group to just leave me alone.
That tension is literally the core of human interaction,
Wow.
because almost every time we speak to someone, we're committing what Brown and Levinson call a face-threatening act, or an FTA.
An FTA. Okay, think about the last time you asked your boss for a Friday off.
Right.
You didn't just walk in and demand it. You were performing a face-threatening act.
Because by asking for the day off, you're threatening their negative face.
Yeah.
You are imposing on their resources and restricting their autonomy over the schedule.
And on the flip side, if your boss critiques your performance, they're attacking your positive face. Your need to be validated and respected.
Exactly. And to manage these constant threats, we calculate how much politeness is required for any given interaction.
It's like so-conscious math.
Yes. Brown and Levinson actually developed a sociological formula for this, which they call weight.
And the sources detail 3 variables in this weight equation.
Yes. Power, distance, and rank.
So power is like, does the listener have authority over me, or do I have authority over them?
Right. And distance is social distance. Is this person my spouse or a stranger I just met on the bus?
And rank is the cultural sensitivity of the topic.
Precisely. Like asking someone their age in the U.S. carries a much higher rank of threat than asking if it's going to rain.
And our brains are just running this complex 3-variable algorithm in milliseconds.
Without us even noticing. We assess the variables, determine the weight of the threat, and then output the exact politeness strategy required to mitigate it.
Okay, let's categorize those strategies. Because once you see the mechanics, you realize you do this 50 times a day.
Easily 50 times.
So if the algorithm tells you to protect someone's positive face to make them feel liked and included, you deploy positive politeness.
Yes. You claim common ground. You actively seek agreement.
You use in-group identity markers, right? Like calling someone dude or pal or using shared industry jargon.
Exactly. You're signaling solidarity.
But what if the algorithm says you need to protect their negative face, their autonomy?
Then you deploy negative politeness. This involves heavy use of hedging.
Hedging. Like saying perhaps, or I was wondering if...
Exactly. Or you use pessimism, which honestly always feels a bit manipulative when you break it down.
Oh, totally. Like saying, you couldn't possibly cover my shift on Friday, could you?
Right. You are expressing doubt to give them a socially acceptable escape hatch, which protects their freedom to say no.
That is so true.
Another highly effective negative strategy is impersonalizing the threat.
Like passive voice.
Similar, yeah.
Okay.
If someone makes an error, rather than saying, you filled out this form incorrectly, which is a direct attack.
You say, it seems the form was filled out incorrectly.
Yes, you remove the you to soften the blow.
And then if the weight of the threat is incredibly high, you just abandon direct communication entirely.
You move to off-record politeness.
Right. You rely purely on implication, or what the linguists call implicature. The source text gives this brilliant example. Imagine you ask your partner, do we leave at 7 or 7:3? And they reply, I think your sister is a stickler for punctuality.
Notice they haven't answered your question directly, and they haven't issued a command.
Because a command would threaten your negative face.
Exactly. Instead, they drop a contextual clue, placing the burden of decoding the implicature entirely on you.
You just have to deduce that you should leave at 7.
And if you misinterpret it or get defensive, they have plausible deniability. They can just say, I was merely making an observation about your sister.
It's a highly defensive strategy.
Very. And what's particularly compelling right now is that this isn't just theoretical sociology anymore.
Right. Computer science has entered the chat.
It has. There was a fascinating study by Daneska Niculescu-Mizil and colleagues.
They thought to computationally identify politeness, right?
Yes, by feeding vast data sets from Wikipedia editor logs and Stack Exchange into machine learning algorithms.
They wanted to see if an algorithm could detect politeness in the wild, basically, without being taught human sociology.
And the machine's findings mapped perfectly onto Brown and Levinson's framework.
No way.
Yes. The algorithms identified that the most effective polite strategies relied heavily on explicit gratitude and deference.
which are textbook positive face protectors.
Exactly. But the rude strategies are where it gets really revealing.
Oh, what did it flag as rude?
The algorithm flagged direct starts, like a user asking, "So can you retrieve it or not?"
Ouch. Yeah, that's blunt.
And it heavily penalized sentences that started with the second person.
Yeah.
Like, you've reverted yourself.
Because starting a sentence with you in a debate setting zeroes right in on accountability.
Yes. It strips away all the hedging and impersonalizing we just discussed. It functions as a direct missile to the recipient's negative face.
Okay, but I want to challenge this idea of a universal, rigid structure of politeness.
All right, go for it.
Because if being polite requires all this careful deference and avoiding the word you
Yeah.
and constantly hedging, well, where does swearing fit in?
That's a great question.
I mean, I can think of plenty of social circles where people swear constantly.
Yeah.
And they aren't being rude, they are just relaxed.
Right.
So is swearing fundamentally an impolite act?
It is a critical distinction to make, and the linguistic research addresses it directly. Swearing is not universally impolite.
Okay.
To understand why, we have to distinguish between denotative and connotative meaning.
Meaning the literal definition versus the emotional baggage.
Exactly. The denotative meaning is the dictionary definition, but the connotative meaning is the emotional, cultural baggage attached to the word.
So when someone drops a swear word after stubbing their toe, they aren't invoking the literal definition.
No, they're broadcasting an emotional state. The primary function of swearing is connotative.
Right.
Therefore, whether it constitutes a face-threatening act depends entirely on those variables we discussed earlier.
Power, distance, and rank.
Yes. The context, the physical setting, and crucially, the distance between the speakers.
Okay, so if I swear in a corporate board meeting with my CEO, the distance is high, the power dynamic is skewed, and the rank is severe.
Yes, you are launching a massive attack on the formality of the room.
But flip the variables. Say you're at a pub with your closest friends.
The distance is minimal.
So in that context, swearing actually flips from being impolite to functioning as a positive politeness strategy.
Exactly, because by using taboo language, you are signaling we are so close and our bond is so secure that we don't need to perform formal societal rules around each other.
You are literally using the broken rule to claim common ground.
You're building solidarity through shared transgression.
That is so cool.
It really showcases how incredibly fluid these algorithms are. However, it is also important to note that Brown and Levinson's theory is not without its critics.
Oh, what's the main criticism?
While some researchers argue that viewing every single human interaction as an exercise in threat mitigation is a rather pessimistic, exhausting view of human nature.
I mean, it does make every conversation sound like a hostage negotiation.
It really does. Furthermore, cross-cultural linguists point out a significant Western bias in the framework.
How so?
The very definition of negative face, the supreme value placed on individual autonomy and independence, is highly indicative of Western, particularly Anglo-American cultural values.
Oh, interesting. Whereas in cultures like China or Japan, the concept of face isn't strictly about protecting the individual from the group.
No, it's often viewed as a shared collective social identity.
Right.
The primary goal of interaction in those contexts isn't to protect your own autonomy, but to maintain the harmony and hierarchy of the collective.
That makes total sense.
So applying a framework built purely on individual threat mitigation to a collectivist society yields an incomplete picture.
Which circles us right back to Terminusova and the realization that the cultural dictionary dictates the operating system.
The culture defines what constitutes a threat in the first place.
Wow. So let's step back and look at the entire arc we've traced today.
It's quite a journey.
Think about the staggering journey your brain has been on. You started as an infant, babbling rhythmic nonsense just to calibrate your vocal cords.
Right.
Then you miraculously deduced the mathematical laws of syntax from the chaotic speech of adults.
Yep.
Next, your specific culture handed you a categorized dictionary that mapped out how you were allowed to perceive social hierarchy.
And today,
you are an adult constantly running subconscious multivariable algorithms regarding power, distance, and rank, deploying off-record implicatures and face redress, all just to navigate a Tuesday morning at the office.
when you break the components down, the cognitive load is immense.
It really is.
Yet